they already paid me for the big speech, and I lost my bag and my thing. But no, it's nice to be here, and it was a really easy thing for me to come and do. And I told a funny story about 20 years ago. A Michigan judge came out to Nevada, and I started with that. And a lot of my colleagues said, "John, you can't go out to Las Vegas and talk before a month. You're going to get in trouble." And see, we had a district judge, and it was up in Reno, up by Lake Tahoe. And he decided that he was going to go to the Mustang Ranch. And it seems that they have a lot of things besides horses there. But, and that probably wasn't as tragic, except that the good judge, I was telling people, he had such a good time at the Mustang Ranch that he had a cab driver driving there, and the cabbie was running the thing, and it was about a $300 and some cab bill, and I don't know how much it was inside the Mustang Ranch. But the good judge started disputing the cab bill, and he got arrested. And of course, he then had to find himself getting the services of a bondsman. And I think when I looked it up, it was like Jesus Christ bail bonds or something. And of course, I thought that was because the judge probably had some things to confess. But anyway, it became a nationwide story from one of our district court judges. And so I was very grateful that Jeff's been a very gracious host, and he certainly made sure that I've been very well behaved and very well supervised and everything. So, but no, I talked a little bit about a number of the things about your industry that I think is important. And actually, I often thought that judges in bond for commercial bond, actually, it's kind of a symbiotic relationship, because I'm very concerned with my docket efficiency, and frankly, it's very important that I have a criminal defendant. It's somebody that can relentlessly hound them and remind them of their court dates, because when they fail to appear, and I've got, as an example, a major jury trial set, and it's very helpful. So I virtually will set, a cash or surety bond in almost every felony case, and I don't do that because I just like you guys. I mean, it also helps me do my job very well, because the minute somebody doesn't show up, I have that approved bondsman's list right up there on the bench. And I always say the one great thing about being a judge, it's not that you get to wear a robe, it's not that you get a hammer, it's that whenever you call somebody, everything stops. I mean, so you get on the phone, and they say, the judge is on the phone, it doesn't matter what, and I'll get hold of, like, the head of the bonds company, and said, I'm just in court, your little Skip's not here today, his attorney's here. Oh, we're going to get right on that, judge. And the nice thing is that usually about 3 or 4 days later, there's my defendant. He's back in court. And so I view it as a very efficient thing. And I kind of actually did a study in preparation of the states that got rid of it. And there was Illinois, Wisconsin, Oregon, and another state, and frankly, just the opposite happened. They thought they had this progressive thing going, and now all of a sudden you got judges giving people, like as an example, $50,000 personal recognizance bond, and of course I always wondered why you do that, because nobody ever collects that, nobody tries to do anything. The county commissioners think you got millions of dollars in uncollected debt. And I try to explain that that's a promise by a criminal that we're going to go out and they're going to pay $50. You know what I mean? And seeing as judges, I don't like getting in the bond business either, because we're already under a lot of pressure, as an example, to collect restitution, fines, costs, crime victims' rights fees. So as a judge, I don't view that's my responsibility to have people posting bonds to the court. So I'm really thankful for what you do as an industry. We got hailed, in the county I am, of having some of the most efficient court dockets in not only the state of Michigan, but the whole nation. And I think a lot of that is because we don't have a lot of failure to appears on our defendants, and we're able to move very efficiently through our dockets. And a big part of that's because your industry makes good decisions about who you issue bonds for, and even when they don't show up, you get them in front of the court in short order. So, yes.
Can I hire you to come to Michigan and talk to our judges?
And the funny thing is when I go to, and I'm on a training committee, and we'll often go to some of these judges and we'll look at, well, judge, their dockets are all backlogged, and they're just very inefficient courts. And one of the first things I will notice is the fact that the judge doesn't use a lot of cash or surety bonds. They do the PR bonds, and then I start looking at all the failure to appears and the missed jury trial dates, and I start beginning to and so actually you can look at them, and actually a lot of them we kind of get converted around, and it's and the other thing I would say, and I read some of the things. Well, what about the poor person that can't get out on bond? And I would say, if there's not somebody that loves you enough to come up with $200, I mean, to post you out on a $2,000 bond, then they probably want you in jail. I mean, so I mean, it's just been my, and then it's nice, even if it's somebody out there and you think they're, they got significant connections to the community, and then they're not in court, then just call that bond agent up, and they have them there virtually usually within usually 72 hours. So. But anyway, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Well, I will tell you my one story. Some of you that didn't, but it was really my first big case as a prosecutor. I was an assistant state attorney in Florida. In the last 3 years, I was doing all major drug trafficking cases. And I'm not so sure I'd want to be a bondsman as much in South Florida. I mean, because, when you get somebody that's got multiple kilos, and, you got Cuba down there, you got the whole Caribbean, you got some countries down there that don't exactly have great extradition relations with the United States, I'd be a little careful about a $500,000 cash or surety bond. And in this defendant I had a really good case. I had his fingerprints on one of the actual kilos. I had a cooperating snitch, and I was working the case up for trial, and he posted a $500,000 bond. And so we were 3 days away from trial, and of course I've got all my experts, all my cases put together. I'm ready to go to trial, and this guy's name was T-Bone. He was a dealer. He had T-Bone carved into his head, and he had a fully paid for BMW convertible, and I had a Ford Probe. And so very early on we were kind of like sizing each other up, and of course my objective was his T-Bone was going to go to prison for a long time. And so as we got closer to trial, 3 days away, he decided he was going to jump bond. And so, of course, the first thing I did is I called the bondsman. And I said, your guy's not in court. Okay, yeah, we'll work in that, So, of course, I'm just an assistant state attorney. Well, then he started sending me these postcards. And the first one was this one, T-Bone did. He says, "Wish you were here," and he's down in the Caribbean, and there's a picture of him, and and a smile, and so I kind of taped that up on my wall, and then a couple of days later I get one from a scantily clad woman with him in another Caribbean island, and pretty soon I'm getting a small collection on my wall. So then I told my boss, and so I got the state attorney to call the bond company. I got the judge to call the bond company. I got the chief judge to call the bond company. So meanwhile, they're realizing, so they put together this specialty kind of recovery services of bail recovery or bondsman recovery or whatever. They kind of specialized in the Caribbean. And they went down, and about 6 months later they got him. I mean, and they so I got to be there right at his pretrial conference. and of course, needless to say, he wanted bond again. That they were kind of angling maybe for $1 million, and I was shaking my head at him, and then it was one of those kind of things too, where he kind of looked over. You kind of draw your finger across your throat, because he knows this time he's going to go down. But in the end, I thought it was kind of good too, because the bond company made out pretty good too, because they got not only the $50,000, they got the BMW convertible. So, but I was always really impressed with that, because early on it was a case that meant a lot to me, and they really made a significant effort, and they went down and got that guy, and they reeled him back in. He was kind of thumbing his nose at the system, and I learned real early on that I could, and I even do that now as a judge, whether sometimes, I'll of course call, but a lot of times I've just found the prosecutor calling, and sometimes even if they're late for a pretrial or something like that, I'll Jeff, you got one of your little skips, and he missed pretrial here, and usually he's right back over there with the defendant, in short order. So So I certainly want to thank all of you for having me come. It was certainly nice. So sorry you missed my whole speech.
Yeah.